This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, so on Daf Yud Amud Aleph, 10a, we are 8 lines from the bottom by the 2 dots there. Rabbi Shimon would say, and this is a good place for Ray to rejoin us because we're going directly to explaining a part that we had in the Mishnah, and you were here for the Mishnah, Ray. And the Mishnah was talking about the different seirim, the different he-goats that are brought at different times. We bring a Rosh Chodesh, we bring Sholosh Regalim, and we also bring on Yom Kippur. There's one that's done bifnim, the blood goes inside the Holy of Holies, and there's one that's done bachutz, outside. And good morning, Ofer. And we also had we discussed, Rabbi Shimon said, we'll see there are 2 versions of Rabbi Shimon in our Mishnah. There's Rabbi Shimon himself, and he said the Seir Rosh Chodesh only, and we had the Seir Rosh Chodesh, Rabbi Shimon says, atones for a tahor person who ate sacrificial food that became tamei. The Seir Regalim, the one that's brought on the pilgrimage holidays, that atones for someone who did not know he became tamei, entered the Beit HaMikdash or ate Kodesh, and then and did not find out afterwards either. No yediyah, no awareness, not when it happened, nor after. Went into Mikdash, ate Kodesh, and still no awareness.
The first one, which the person was tahor, and he ate something that was not,
Sacrificial food that became tamei.
so he just had like a regular meal.
He was eating shlamim. He was eating sacrificial food,
But
that somehow become tamei.
so wouldn't that make it regular food?
No, that's kodesh food that became tamei that you're not allowed to eat.
That should be put up, burnt?
I believe so.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Rabbi,
Yes.
say welcome back, Ray. Thanks for the questions.
Welcome back, Ray, and thanks for the questions. Right? And the Seir of Yom Kippur is when you did not have knowledge in the beginning, and you were not aware you became Tameh, entered Mikdash, ate Kodesh, and then you became aware afterwards.
So
But you don't bring a personal sacrifice since you were not aware in the beginning. That the communal sacrifice covers. Good morning. In a case where you knew in the beginning, were unaware, entered Mikdash, ate Kodesh, and then found out at the end, there you need to bring your own personal sacrifice. Good morning, Scott. Okay? So Rabbi Meir, hi, are you staying for a little while or you need to rush out?
So sit.
Hey, Scott, good to see you. You look good.
Thank you.
Morning, Scott. We've got Ray back with us in person over here.
Yay. What page are we on, please?
We're on 10a towards the bottom.
10a3.
Okay.
10a3 according to Ray. Okay.
All right.
And we also have Baruch joining us this morning. Ram is here with us. Okay, so Rabbi Meir said all 3 of those seirim, the seir of Rosh Chodesh, the seir of the holidays, the seir of Yom Kippur, atones, each one of those 3 atones for all 3 of these mishaps. When the tahor person ate that which was tamei, the person did not have awareness beginning nor afterwards that he was tamei and entered, or where the person did not have awareness and became tamei, entered mikdash and then had awareness. All 3 atone for all 3. And back in our Mishnah, Rabbi Shimon said that no, each one only atones for it and none of the others. The seir of Rosh Chodesh only atones for the tahor that ate that was tamei. The seir of the holidays only atones for a person who did not have awareness when he became tamei, entered mikdash, ate kodesh, and still does not have awareness afterwards. And the seir of Yom Kippur that atones for a person who did not have awareness when he became tamei, entered mikdash, ate kodesh, and then found out afterwards. So he says each one of those only atones for its mishap. Haya Rabbi Shimon Omer. Rabbi Shimon would say, Seir Rosh Chodeshim mechaprim only al tahor. The Seir Rosh Chodesh atones only for the tahor, the person who was tahor, she'achalat tamei, who ate sacrificial food that became tamei, and as Ray pointed out, in such a case, that does not become regular food and must be burnt. The Gemara says, Bishlama, it is good. I understand the Rashi Chadashim lo mechapre at de regalim. I understand that the Rosh Chodesh one does not atone for that which the regalim covers. That's when a person did not have awareness, became tamei, entered mikdash, ate kodesh, and still does not have awareness. Why? The Amar Kra Avon. This was back before we had this, when Moshe was censuring Aaron and his children for the Seir of Rosh Chodesh having been burnt instead of eaten. So Moshe said, "V'otan nitan lachem laseit et avon ha'edah." That Rosh Chodesh is there to carry the sin in the singular of the Eidah. And we learned out there, Oven from the Tzitz, that refers to that the person was Tar who ate Tameh. But it says Avon in the singular. So therefore, Rosh Chodesh only atones for one sin. And what is that, Rosh Shimon says? The Tahor She'achlas Atameh, the Tahor the Etameh, it will not atone for that which the Seir of the holidays or the Seir of Yom Kippur atones for. Oven echad who no say. It carries one sin, and that's the Torah person who ate that which was tamei. Ve'enu no say shnei avonot. It does not cover multiple sins. So I understand, the Gemara says, why Reb Shimon says that the Seir of Rosh Chodesh only atones for its atonement, which is the tahor that ate, which was tamei. Yes, Raymond.
So according to Rabbi Shimon, the person who ate and wasn't aware of it for the whole process, this is done for him. He doesn't know it was done.
Correct.
So if he finds out after Rosh Chodesh that the stuff that he ate
Was tamei.
was tamei, was it covered already or
No, yes. As long as there was a Rosh Chodesh after he ate that,
that he didn't know what
correct.
Rosh Chodesh?
Correct.
Okay. So then if he finds out afterwards, it's all
Correct. Ella, but the regalim. But why does he say that the regalim nichapru Rashi Chadashim? Over there, we don't have this limitation. Or right now, we're not sure what is the limitation that we find when the Torah spoke about the holidays, the Sholosh Regalim, where we bring a seir, right? That we said atones for when a person had no awareness, he became tamei, entered mikdash, ate kodesh, and no awareness afterwards. Why doesn't that also atone for that which Rosh Chodesh atoned for? Why doesn't that also atone for a person who was tahor that ate tamei? So let's say that happened after Rosh Chodesh. Then and one of the regalim one of the holidays comes around, that will atone for him even before he gets to the next Rosh Chodesh. Amar Kra, the pasuk says again, and that was given va'ota nitan lachem. Again, when Moshe was censuring Aaron and his sons for having burned that Rosh Chodesh one, he said va'ota, and that was given to cover this sin. So that was given to cover this sin. We said it covers this sin and no other sins. And Ota, that was given to cover this sin. Ota Nitan, that was given. Ota no avon. That, the Rosh Chodesh one, covers this sin of the Tahor who ate something that was Tameh. The Ein Acher no avon. But nothing else will carry this sin. So that's how Rabbi Shimon the opinion in our Mishnah learned out that Rosh Chodesh only covers it, nothing else, and the Regalim does not cover that of Rosh Chodesh. The Gemara said, fair enough. Bishlama de Regalim lo mechaprim adiyama kippurim. Now let's work up the scale. So we have Rosh Chodesh only atones for it, nothing else atones for it, and Regalim doesn't atone for it only atones for it, nothing else, and Regalim doesn't atone for Rosh Chodesh. There's still two left. There's Regalim and Yom Kippur. Regalim atones for no yediyah, no awareness, not beginning, not the end. Yom Kippur atones for no awareness in the beginning, but yes, awareness in the end. Why does Rav Shimon say that those don't cover both of those situations? Bishlama de Regalim, it's good by the Regalim, lo mechaprin ad Yom Kippurim. That does not atone for Yom Kippurim. How do we know that? The Amar Kra Achat. The pasuk says Achat b'shana. This is in Shmot Lamed. Let me just get it. Shmot Lamed pasuk Yud, page 482. This is actually, we'll soon see, talking about the Yom Kippur Seir, not the one that we're discussing now, that was done on the outer altar, but this is talking about the one that was done on the inner altar. And the last pasuk in Parashat Tetzaveh, page 482, pasuk Yud, v'chiper Aaron al karnotav. Aaron will atone utilizing the karnot, the corners of that altar, achat b'shana, once a year. Midam, from the blood, chatat of the kippurim, from the blood of the chatat kippurim. A second time it says achat b'shana yichaper alav, one time a year will atone. So the Gemara says again, 4 lines at the bottom. Bishlama de Regalim, it's good that Regalim lo mechaprim na Yom Kippurim does not atone. So the Regalim, which atones for no awareness beginning and end, does not atone for that which the Yom Kippur atones, which is no awareness beginning. Yes, awareness in the end. The Amar Kra Achat b'shana, because it says that atonement of Yom Kippur, which is no awareness in the beginning, though awareness afterwards, it says that happens how often? Achat b'shana, kapara, once a year. Kapara zu lo tehe ela achat b'shana. This kapara only happens one time a year, and therefore the regalim will not atone for the Yom Kippur atonement of no awareness at the beginning, yes awareness at the end, because it says there once a year. But let the Yom Kippur, let that atone for itself, no awareness beginning, yes awareness in the end, and also that of the Regalim, which is no awareness in the beginning, nor any awareness afterwards. Amar Kra, remember it said achat, it said twice in that pasuk. V'chiper Aaron al karnotav, he will atone utilizing those corners once a year, from the blood of the Chad Kippurim once a year. It says achat again. Kapara achat mechaper. Ve'ena mechaper shtei kaparot. So the first one tells me that this atonement happens once a year. No one else, the regalim, will not atone its atonement. And the second one tells me it only affects one atonement. It does not do 2 atonements. It will not atone for that which the regalim, the holidays, also atones for. The Gemara asks the bottom line now. Vaha ki kitiv acha. For 1 second, this pasuk that Ray and I are looking at, Shmot, Perek Lamed, pasuk Yud, is talking about the seir that went on the inner altar, and we're talking about the one that atones for no awareness in the beginning, and that he became Tameh, entered Mikdash, ate Kodesh, and then realized afterwards. That was the seir that was brought on the outer altar. So we want to show that atonement only happens once, and that only does one atonement, but you're bringing from a pasuk that's not talking about the seir that's brought on the outer altar. You bring a pasuk that talks about the seir that was done on the inner altar. V'haki ksiv achat b'seir nase bifnim hu dichtiv. That achat, that one time that said it only does one, and its atonement only happens once, is not talking about the seir that we're discussing done on the outer altar, but that's the seir nase bifnim. That's talking about the seir that was done on the inner altar. Amar Kra, the Gemara answers yes. Granted. However, the pasuk says milvad chatat ha kippurim. There, when it's discussing the sacrifices that were brought on Yom Kippur, it lumps them together as the chatat ha kippurim, the chatat of the kippurim of the atonements. So we compare the inner one. We lump together the one done on the inner altar, the one done on the outer altar. The itkush, we compare chitzon lapnimi, the outer one to the inner one. So just like the achat that's written twice by the inner altar tells me it only does one, and no one else does what it does, so too the outer altar, it only does one, no awareness beginning, yes awareness in the end, and no one else does its atonement. Okay. So that was Rabbi Shimon in our Mishnah, who said each one of the three, Rosh Chodesh only does its tahor that ate tameh, Regalim, the holidays, only does it, no awareness beginning, no awareness end. Yom Kippur only does its, which is no awareness beginning, yes awareness at the end. As opposed to Rabbi Meir, who said all three atone for all three of those. Then we had, back in our Mishnah, top line of Yud Amid Bet, Rabbi Shimon ben Yehuda. Scott, your coffee sounds delicious, but it's giving us a little bit of feedback over there.
Sorry, I didn't turn my mic off. Sorry.
Okay. Rabbi Shimon ben Yehuda Omer Mishmo. Rabbi Shimon ben Yehuda, he said, no, Tanakama, your version of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai is not correct. He didn't say that each one only atones for its. Rather, his arguing opinion with Rabbi Meir, who said all three atones for all three, was this. This is what Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai said. Rabbi Shimon ben Yehuda tells us. He said the Rosh Chodesh only atones for one, its, which was the Torah that ate Tameh. Now, comes to the Sholosh Regalim, the holidays, that atones for two, its own, no awareness beginning end, and that of Rosh Chodesh. And comes to Yom Kippur, that atones for three. That atones for no awareness beginning, yes awareness end, its own, and Shalosh Regalim's no awareness beginning end, and Rosh Chodesh is Tahor that ate, which was Tameh. So it's sort of like a cone, right? Rosh Chodesh only does it, but similar to our Mahadrim and our Mahadrin, right? And then along comes the Sholosh Regalim, and that atones for Rosh Chodesh and it. And then along comes Yom Kippur, and that atones for Rosh Chodesh, what Rosh Chodesh atoned for, and the holidays atoned for, and Yom Kippur's. So it's more like that stack up. That's how he understands Rabbi Shimon. Okay, so now we have to go back to our psukim and see why Rosh Chodesh only does one, but Regalim could do two, and why Regalim only does two, but Yom Kippur can do all three. Let's hear. Maishna. So Gemara asks, what is the difference? Why is it the Rosh Chodashim, that Rosh Chodesh, the Lo Mechapri Ad Regalim, that it does not atone also for that of the Regalim? The Rosh Chodesh only atones for the Torah that ate Tameh, but not for the no awareness of Tumah beginning and end. To Amar Kra Avon. Again, when Moshe was rebuking Aaron and his sons for having burned that after the death of Nadav and Avihu, And there were 3 seirim there. There was that of the Nachshon, there was that Nachshon brought, there was that of the dedication, and there was that of Rosh Chodesh. All 3 were burned. And Moshe was upset about the Rosh Chodesh one that was being burned. So there it says, and that was given to carry the avon. And we said, oh, that carries avon. It carries the sin. Avon is in the singular. So we said, avon echad hu nosei. Ve'eno nosei shnei avonot. That only carries 1 sin and not 2. So this second version of Rav Shimon we understand when he said Rosh Chodesh only atones for 1, only for it, only for the tahor that ate that which is tamei. But that pasuk also said ota, the regalim nami. But how can he say that the regalim will atone for that also? It will atone for its own atonement where there was no knowledge beginning, no awareness at the end, but it also atones for that. The regalim nami lo livkaru out of Rosh Chodashim. But it also, like Rav Shimon's first version said, should not atone also for the Rosh Chodesh. The Amar Kra ota. Ota who no say avon, ve'ein acher no say avon. It will carry that sin, and nothing else carries that sin. So Gemara says no. Rabbi Shimon says ota lo mashmalei. He doesn't hear that from the word ota. That carries it. It's not to say nothing else carries it. When you're saying it carries the sin, and as opposed to saying the sins, you say the sin. That clearly means it carries 1 sin and no more. This carries that 1 sin. That's not to the exclusion of anything else. Something else might also carry that sin. And he, in fact, says that the regalim will carry the sin of no awareness beginning, no awareness end, and also carry the sin of Rosh Chodesh, that which Rosh Chodesh carries, which is the tahor that ate that who ate that which was tamei. Let's continue up our stack over here. Ma'ishna de regalim de lo michpuri ad Yom Kippurim. So again, he said regalim will atone for it, no awareness beginning end, and for Rosh Chodesh, but it will not atone for Yom Kippurim, which was no awareness beginning, yes awareness in the end. Ma'ishna, why is it that he agrees the regalim de lo mechaper ad Yom Kippurim, that the regalim atonement will not also cover that which Yom Kippur atones for? Why is that? The Amar Kra, the pasuk said, Achat b'shana. That's our pasuk over there, the end of Shmot Perek Lamed. It happens once a year. That atonement of Yom Kippur, that which it atones for, which is no awareness beginning, Mekin Tameh, entered Mikdash, ate Kodesh, and then realized afterwards. That happens once a year. Kaparazu lo tehe ela achat b'shana. This atonement only happens once a year. Yom Kippur atones for that situation. The holidays do not. Ihachi, but if so, how can he say Yom Kippur does atone for also that of the regalim, right? Which means it also atones for the regalim, which atones for regalim and Rosh Chodesh. Yom Kippurim nami lo nichbaru ad regalim. It should not atone for that of the regalim because it says achat ksiv. That very same pasuk said achat twice, which taught me A, this atonement only happens once, and B, this only atones for one thing. Kapara achat mechaper. This atones for one kapara. That for no awareness beginning, yes, awareness at the end. It does not atone for 2 kaparot, or even 3. The Gemara says, achat lo mashmalei. No, he doesn't use the word achat. Why? Because like we challenged before, achat when it says achat, that pasuk is talking about the seir that was brought, that the blood was brought on the inner altar, not the outer altar. So there is no achat exclusions by the seir of Yom Kippur. Iyachid regalim nami nichbrod yom kippurim. The chig sev achat b'ser nasa b'fnim ksiv. Well, you can't have it both ways. You can't use one of those achats and not the other. Either you say that pasuk is written by the seir on the inner altar, nothing to do with the outer altar, so you have no exclusions, and therefore its kapara can happen more than once, and it could do more than one kapara. Or you say it is applying because we compare the inner to the outer, and therefore its kapara only happens once, and right, and it only does one kapara. But how do you have both? How do you want to have it both ways? You want to say, no, it says achat, so therefore its kapara only happens once. The others don't do its kapara. Rosh Chodesh only does one. Holidays does two. And Yom Kippur does three. No one else does its kapara. But it does the other kaparas. Why are you using one achat? How can you use one achat and not the other achat? Right? Either you say it's written by the inner seir, but we compare the two, and therefore the outer seir, its kapara only happens once, and it only does one, or not. In which case, its kapara happens more than once, and it can do more than one.
It happens once for that kapara, but it also covers the other two. So it's only doing that one, which is the Yom Kippur.
But it says achat twice. So we said one achat comes to teach me its kapara only happens once. No one else can do what it can do. The second achat taught me it only does one kapara. It does not do any more kaparot. Right? Its kapara happens once, and it only does one, no more. So how do you split it? How do you use one achat and not the other? So Gemara explains, I'll tell you how, and it's beautiful. La'olam achat mashmalei. No, he has that comparison, inner seir, outer seir. So this pasuk that says by the inner seir achat, it says achat twice, we'll soon see, also applies to the outer seir. The shani hacha, but it's different over here. The Amar Kra, the chiper Aaron al karnotav achat v'shana. Let's see that pasuk again. The first achat says Aaron will atone on the horns of that altar, of the inner altar, achat v'shana, once a year. I'm sorry?
I thought it was
No, the corners of the altar.
Horns means the corner.
Yeah. Karnotam is beach. Take a look in the diagram.
Yes.
Those raised corners, right? He will atone al karnotav. That's that achat b'shana. Once a year, he will do an atonement where on the horns of the inner altar. That's talking about the altar, not talking about the sacrifice. Now the second pasuk. Now the pasuk continues. Midam, from the blood of this sin offering of Kippurim, achat b'shana yichaper. Once a year it will atone. So one achat is talking about the altar. The other achat is talking about the sacrifice. So what will be extended out to the outer sacrifice? The one that's talking about the sacrifice. So therefore, it lets me know this atonement only happens once a year. No one else. Rosh Chodesh does not affect its atonement. The regalim, the holidays, does not affect its atonement. But that second miyut, that second minimizing, narrowing, which said it only does one, no, that said that the inner altar only does one. But we don't have anything over here. Let's see it inside the Gemara. He will atone on the horns of that altar, the inner altar, once a year. The horns of the inner altar. Who the kapara achat mechaper? That does one atonement. Ve'eno mechaper shtei kaparot, and does not do two atonements. Right? And that inner altar, what is that atoning for? That is when you knew in the beginning, still have not, and you knew, forgot, entered Mikdash, ate Kodesh, still haven't realized it. So that will protect you until you do realize it. And then you'll need to bring, of course, your own personal carbon olive yored fluctuating scale. So that only does one kapara and no more. Hadchitzon, but the outer altar, afilu shtei kaparot, that can do even 2 kaparot, meaning that can do its own, which was no yediyah beginning, no awareness beginning, yes awareness at the end, and that of the regalim, which in fact is a double header, which is no awareness beginning or end, and that of Rosh Chodesh, which is the tahor that ate something which was tameh.
Well, here we'll just move the last sentence there.
Okay. Amar Ula, new piece now. That's going to be quoting our Mishnah. That's where we're bringing in what seems to be a completely different issue. Amar Ula, Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Ula said in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, Timidin shelo hutzruchu litzibor nifdin timimim. Okay, normally we have a rule as follows. If an animal was consecrated for a sacrifice and it is unblemished, if it gets a blemish, then of course it needs to be redeemed. It becomes deconsecrated, still has certain limitations on it, and the money then is consecrated, and that money is used to purchase a new korban, unblemished, and that then is brought as a sacrifice.
Is there enough money to do that? You're selling a blemished animal to get unblemished.
Okay, so that money will need to go towards.
So you're going to have to.
Right, you might need to kick in a little bit. You might have to call Ray for his famous knapsack for a little extra kick in over there, right? But if an animal is unblemished, then it can't, and it's a consecrated animal that's unblemished, it can't be redeemed. But there are 4 animals every year that are a problem. What is the problem? The problem is as follows. Comes Rosh Chodesh Nisan, the start of the first month of the year, Nisan, all the sacrifices need to come from the new donations. You can't, of that year, right? New donations, starting Nisan 1. But whenever we would bring every day we would bring a carbon tamid, the consistent daily sacrifice, 1 in the morning, 1 in the night. We would always have 6 animals in the lishka, in that area where the animals were taken from, that had been checked to make sure they weren't blemished, and 2 of them would be used for the sacrifice that day. For the next day, we bring in two more animals, and we always have 6 ready from which we choose 2. The problem is on the last day of Adar, we've got 6 in that area. We choose 2 to use for the last day of Adar. Now there are 4 remaining, but now it's the first day of Nisan. We can't bring, those 4 were from last year's donations. We need to bring now animals from this year's donations. So what do we do with those 4? They're unblemished. They can't be brought as a sacrifice. And normally we say an unblemished sacrificial animal cannot be redeemed. So what do we do with those? Along comes Ula in the name of Yochanan, and he says, those Tamidin, those 4 animals that were set aside for the Karban Tamid, there were 6 set aside, 2 were used on the last day. The remaining 4, Shelo Hutzruchu Litzibur, which were not needed for the tzibur, we took 2. There's 4 left. You only bring 2. You can't bring 4 or 6. Niftin tamimin, those will be redeemed when they are unblemished. And what will we do? what will we do? We will redeem them and use that money, that consecrated money will go for the coverings of gold that's on the Aron in the Holy of Holies, or the inner, I think it might all be covered with gold, of the Kodesh Kadashim, to make sure that the krashim, the uprights, were covered with gold. So that would go for the gold coverings of the Holy of Holies whenever you needed to add on some or rework it, right? That's what that money.
But how do you?
That's what that money would go for, and then we would use. Now the animals are deconsecrated. We would use the new donations of this year to reconsecrate those animals, and then they would be brought. They would enter the pool to be brought as a korban tamid. Now, as we go forward into the new sacrificial year, right? The shul has its calendar year, which is September 1 to August, our fiscal year, and the United States has January 1 to December 31, right? And the mikdash, the temple fiscal year for sacrifices was 1st of Nisan through 30th of Adar. So then they would reconsecrate these animals utilizing money from the new donations, and then it would be brought.
Those offerings, the tamid offerings. What
tamid?
The daily, not
tamid.
Tamid.
Sorry, yes.
Is what was it done for? The one in the morning and the one in the evening.
General atonement for the children of Israel.
So it wasn't one particular person's?
I wasn't. No, it was at Tzibur. These are communal offerings.
So where did they get the animals from?
The money was from the machzit shekel, the half shekel that everyone had to donate every year, and that's what would be used each year. New donations.
Okay. These are general funds donations.
Correct.
What are they doing when they actually do this process?
I'm sorry?
You say you have a certain technical reason that they had to do something so that the animal could be used. What are they doing to do? What's the process?
Oh, the process is proclaiming it as Kodesh, is buying it and proclaiming it, buying it for sacrificial use, and that gives it its kedusha, its consecration.
Because it comes from money that was
correct, being that we used the money that was donated, right, to be used for that. So that is Ula's statement in the name of Rabbi Yochanan. Those tamidim, those 4 tamidim that we didn't need, could be redeemed when they are tamimim, unblemished. They become deconsecrated. The money goes for the Holy of Holies, and then it's new money that will then purchase them, so to speak, and now they are reconsecrated from the new money, and they can be brought. Yativ Rabba was sitting, the Ka'amar Lola Hashmaita, and said over this teaching of Ula in the name of Yochanan. Amalei, Rav Chizda. Chizda said to Rabba, Man sayit lecha, who's going to listen to you? Ula Rabbi Yochanan Rabcha, and to Rabbi Yochanan your Rebbe. That doesn't make sense. V'chi kedusha shebehen leheichan alcha. Where did the kedusha go? Right? The kedusha can't just disappear. The kedusha, right? If it's ready for the altar, if it's altar ready and it's consecrated, then the kedusha doesn't come off. You can't redeem it and deconsecrate it. And once it has kedushat haguf, if something has kedushat damim, if I dedicate my cell phone to the temple, to the Beis HaMikdash, this has kedusha on its value. Very good. Now when it's paid, someone redeems it. Now it got deconsecrated. That's kedushat damim, holiness of its value. When something has kedushat haguf, that it has its own inherent kedusha, it's going to go up onto the altar. That cannot just disappear. That does not dissipate. You're redeeming that. Where does the kedusha go? The kedusha does not just go. Kedusha shebehen leheichan halcha. Where does the kedusha just go? So he's going to say back to him, oh yeah? Well, I'll show you cases where you'll agree with me that the kedusha is kedushat haguf, and it can be redeemed. So to over here, it has kedushat haguf, it has the inherent kedusha, not just of its value, but it itself will go onto the altar, and nevertheless, it can be redeemed. I'll show you that we're right. When will I show you this? Monday morning is when I'll show you this. Okay. Yashikoach, everybody. Scott, good to see you. Joel, good to know you're there. Ofer, good to know you're there, even though I don't get to see you. And Art, let me wish you a Shavua Tov, as you and 17 other people who I can't quite figure out will be watching this. A good Shabbos, everybody.
Have a good Shabbos.
Good Shabbos, good Hanukkah, and a good Chodesh, a new month also.
Good job.